me to keep making my tutorials, I simply ask that you hit the subscribe button. It is totally free. When you do hit the subscribe button, along with the notification button, you will be alerted when I put out a new video to help you with your QuickBooks software. Do you purchase the same inventory item from multiple vendors based on pricing or lead times? Starting with QuickBooks Enterprise Platinum Edition V20, you now have a feature to compare vendor pricing and lead time based on the individual product. You are allowed one preferred vendor and 3 alternative vendors for a total of 4 alternate vendors. Using alternative vendors makes it easy to match your vendor items with your inventory items. When it's time to make a purchase, you can easily compare and choose which vendor to purchase from at any given time. In this video, I will demonstrate the first step to set up your vendor items. This will start the process so you can compare which vendor to purchase your product from. To get started, we need to make sure our advanced inventory is turned on within QuickBooks before we can get started. Now let's go to see how to view your vendor item information. Let's take a look to see what vendor screen shows before we import our vendor prices. Let's select Vendors, Vendor Center. Select the vendor. We will choose Foster Lighting. Select the Items tab in the center of your screen. This tab contains your specific vendor's item list. What you will see before you import your vendor's price list are inventory and non-inventory purchases from vendors within the last 12 months. This includes the item name from your items list within QuickBooks, most recent purchase price, quantity ordered, and your last order date. As you can see, for alternative vendors to be effective, we need to import our vendor description, vendor's part number, price, unit of measure, and lead time. To import your current price list, select Manage Vendor Items on the bottom left of your screen. Here you can choose to remove a record or add edit vendor items. If I click into the Add Edit Vendor Items, you will see all fields are blank because we haven't yet uploaded our initial price list. Honestly, QuickBooks has some work to do with simplifying the process to get your items imported for the first time. They should have had another choice on the Manage Vendor button to export your price list by preferred or alternate vendor to an Excel spreadsheet. I'll explain why in the next video and what options are available at this time. I still think that this is a great feature, but they need to make the initial setup of your vendor items list much easier. Each vendor usually doesn't sell everything in your inventory parts list. QuickBooks doesn't have a way at this time to sort through your item list other than through your preferred vendor. In this video, we will go through some of the obstacles I experienced before coming up with a workaround which I will demonstrate to import your vendor price list for the first time. Let's go back to our vendor information page. We'll go to Vendors, then Vendor Center. Select the vendor. We will choose Foster Lighting again. Select the Items tab in the center of your screen. This tab contains your specific vendor items list. Here are the purchases of inventory parts from Foster Lighting within the last year of our sample file, which as you notice is showing a few years down the road. I'm hoping post-COVID. QuickBooks suggests to click on the Manage Vendor Items button and choose the Add Edit Vendor Items. This will work once the initial price list is uploaded. As you can see, when I choose to Add Edit Vendor Items, my screen comes up without any items showing on the list. What I would suggest, so QuickBooks if you're listening, is a third option to export your vendor price list to Excel based on preferred and alternate vendor setup. I tried many ways to make the import of your vendor price list easy for you. Here's the best workaround I found to get your vendor's price list imported for the first time. Let's go back to our Add, Edit, Multiple List Entries. So we'll go to List, Add, Edit, Multiple List Entries. Choose Inventory Parts under the List field with active inventory items to view. If you have different columns than what I show, you can go to the Customize Columns to set up your list like my example. We are setting up the import for Foster Lighting. The sub-item field is your parent category. Sometimes it's a manufacturer's name or a product category like shown here. The item name can contain your manufacturer part number or another identifier you create. Keep in mind that the item name number field is key to how we search for the vendor product in QuickBooks. Under the Preferred Vendor column, we will enter Foster Lighting on each inventory part we want for our initial import, whether they are a preferred vendor or an alternate vendor. I will choose all the items that need to be imported for Foster Lighting. You can copy down to duplicate or clear your entire column if needed. I added the manufacturer's part number to our spreadsheet for help identifying the part number, or to copy and paste your manufacturer's part number into your item name field. I have the unit of measure, cost, and sales price added to the worksheet, but that's up to you what fields to show. The cost of goods sold, income, and asset account are required fields on the worksheet. Once Foster Lighting is added to each item field, we can select Save Changes. A pop-up will notify us of how many records or items were saved. Click OK, then Exit. The next step is to import your vendor price list. Let's go back to our item list. Go to List, Item List. Go to the bottom of the screen and click the Reports drop-down box. Choose Price List, Customize Report. We want the item, description, preferred vendor, unit of measure, price, which is the sales price, and then I'm going to add cost because that might help us compare the price we're importing into the vendor price list. Once you have your item price list columns customized, we need to filter our vendor's name. Go to Customize Report, Filters, scroll to Preferred Vendor, scroll to Foster Lighting. You will see in the current filter choices that your preferred vendor is Foster Lighting. Select OK. The item price list for Foster Lighting is shown. Let's export this to Excel. Go to the Excel drop-down at the center top of your screen. Choose Create New Workbook. Then click Export. This exports your report to Excel. Now that the report is exported, let's go back to our QuickBooks Enterprise. Let's go to List, Add, Edit List Entries. We'll choose Vendor Items under the List field. Choose Foster Lighting. The columns on your vendor import are item name, item description, item cost, your vendor part number, your purchase unit of measure, lead time, notes, and the vendor type. Keep in mind that QuickBooks didn't enter a drop-down arrow for choices like they did with other import lists. Let's bring up our Excel spreadsheet. Delete out the blank columns. Then we need to customize the price list for initial import. I added the columns cost, vendor part number, purchase unit and measure, the lead time, which is configured in days, any notes. The vendor type field can be left blank. As you can see, I also added the information to be imported. The item name and unit of measure has to be the exact same characters as your QuickBooks field. Keep in mind that QuickBooks didn't enter a drop-down for your item name or unit of measure column. So if you don't have that exactly like what QuickBooks shows in their software, you will get an error. I will now delete the fields that will not be imported. Then copy the cells in Excel and paste into your vendor items worksheet. As I mentioned, the item name and unit measure has to match your QuickBooks field exactly. For example, if we entered the unit of measure abbreviated as EA, we will get an error because QuickBooks has it listed in a different format. I wish QuickBooks had allowed a drop box to choose from your available options like they do in the other import worksheets. So QuickBooks, if you're listening, please add those. If there are any errors, your worksheet will show that error in red. If not, and everything looks good, choose and save your changes. A pop-up box shows the number of records or items saved. Click OK, then close. Save your Excel spreadsheet so that the next import for Foster Lighting will be much faster to perform. Perform this for each vendor that will be a preferred or alternate vendor. Now that we have completed our vendor price list import, let's now set up our alternate vendors for inventory. You can assign up to 4 total alternate vendors to display for an inventory item. You can assign or manage alternate vendors directly within the Create Edit window of any item underneath to where you normally assign the preferred vendor. So let's get started. Select List, select Item List. Choose an inventory item. We'll double-click on the highlighted item. Select your preferred vendor if you have one. I will choose Hall Lighting and Accessories. Select the Manage button next to the alternate vendor. A Manage Alternate Vendors pop-up dialog box appears. Your preferred vendor shows first. Next, scroll down to add Foster Lighting as an alternate vendor. In the Status drop-down box, choose Alternate. I will also add Paulson's Lighting as an alternate vendor. Once you're completed, click Save and Close, then click OK. Do this for each inventory item you want to compare vendor pricing up to 4 total, including your preferred vendor. I know that this is tedious to get started. Like we showed you in another video, you can choose your preferred vendor, but QuickBooks needs to allow you to do the same thing for your alternate vendors as well. In the next video, we will view Foster Lighting Vendor Items tab. Now that we have set up our initial price list for Foster's Lighting and set up our preferred and alternate vendors within our item list, let's go back to our Vendor Items tab to see what it looks like now. Go to Vendors, then Vendor Center, select the vendor, and guess who we're choosing again? Foster Lighting. Select the Item tab in the center of your screen. This tab contains your specific vendor items list. The first part of the list shows your import information with the import date. The items below show the items you purchased that do not have an alternate vendor associated with them. The items that we imported show the description, unit of measure, the price, which is your cost, the lead time, which shows in days, the vendor part number, and any notes that were added, and then finally the date of import, so you know when was the last import date. This tells you how current your pricing information is for analysis. To update your pricing list, go to Manage Vendor Items dropdown and choose Add Edit Multiple List Entries. Your item list will come up. Change your pricing and lead time if needed. Save your changes. I'm so excited now that we are ready to move on to the next step on how to compare vendor prices for your purchases. When it's time to purchase inventory, you can compare alternate vendors along with your preferred vendor. In this video, we go through how to compare vendor pricing and lead time between alternate vendors. Go to Vendors, click Create Purchase Order. We will add a couple of inventory parts. You have two choices to compare pricing for alternate vendors. The first one is to select a vendor, then select View Vendor Price. This will bring up your pricing and lead time information for your vendor. You are able to choose other vendors to get their pricing and lead time information. I personally like the other option better. Let's close out of this screen. We will highlight an inventory item, then select the Compare Vendor icon. A Compare Vendors dialog box will appear. This will show your preferred vendor and alternate vendors on one page with their purchase information from within the past year, along with the inventory part price and lead time to help you decide who to purchase your part from. I wish QuickBooks would allow us to click on the highlighted part to add to the purchase order or create a new purchase order with a different vendor. That concludes my video presentation on how to compare vendor pricing and lead time information for the same inventory part. If you already have QuickBooks Enterprise, please call or email me for a price comparison with your current subscription. We can see if I can get you a better price than what you're currently paying. If you haven't purchased QuickBooks Enterprise yet and you want more information, also please call or email me and we can set up a consultation. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. You'll be alerted when I create any other videos like this. Thank you for watching my videos.